Hello YouTube, how's everyone doing? It's Professional here. Welcome back to my playthrough of Medal of Honor. I hope that you guys are enjoying this series. If you are, please do drop a like. It does help the series out a lot. Love playing these games for you guys. But let's continue from where we left off right here. Fall of the Philippines. This is a part of the war that you really don't see covered in a lot of World War II games and movies. January 1st, 1942. So, the fall of the Philippines, this is like a part of World War II that you oftentimes don't see in a lot of World War II games or even movies.
Joseph, is that you? Oh man, it's good to see you. You made it out to California, I can't believe it. We got real problems.
This is your brother.
We got overrun by the enemy and lost the truck and all our demolition gear. The truck is somewhere near that church in the town square. But the place is crawling with jacks. We need the demolitions on that truck to blow this bridge.
Hang fire for a minute. I'll be giving the order. Let's clear this area out so we can get to that tank. Here they come!
Okay. I forgot that the enemies go prone in this game. Okay. It's not clear yet then. No. Okay. Tank cogwheel. Okay. So basically the background behind this is that, like I said, right after the Pearl Harbor attack, Japan launched a massive offensive. They took Guam, they took Wake Island, they took, they invaded the Philippines and conquered the Philippines within a few months. They pushed into Southeast Asia. They also attacked Hong Kong, I believe, and then there was also Singapore. At this time, I think Britain declared war at Japan on the same time as well, but the Philippines at this time was technically an independent country, but mostly on paper. It wasn't fully independent. It was more of a protectorate of the U.S., and the U.S. basically told them what to do a lot of times. So, the U.S. had a pretty big, damn, we're getting shot from. The U.S. had a pretty significant presence in the Philippines, so there was a pretty significant presence there. That's why American soldiers were there when the Japanese invaded, and the reason the U.S. was there was because the U.S. had gotten the Philippines from the Spanish after the Spanish-American War, so the Philippines were originally a Spanish colony. Oh, here we go. I think this is a Stuart tank. Correct me if I'm wrong on that. Okay.
Let's show them what we're made of! What's up? Get in there! Take that position! Consolidate against counterattack!
So the U.S. at this time was trying to hold off the Imperial Japanese Army, but there was just too many of them, and the U.S. wasn't prepared for it. Oh, that weapon, yeah. So that thing right there, I don't remember what that thing is called, but that was a real-life charge that the Japanese would use, and they would basically just run into American tanks with that, and it would blow up the guy carrying it as well. It was a suicide attack. Man, I love the soundtrack in these games. Okay, now we just go back here for a moment because I think that there's a collectible here that we missed. Yeah, just something about these old games, nostalgia of playing them, right? Here we go. So basically, the US tried to hold off the Imperial Japanese Army, but they had quickly taken over the Philippines within a few months. And what happened was over 100,000 American and Filipino soldiers were taken prisoners of war. And then you had the Bataan Death March, which the Bataan Death March, one of the worst Japanese atrocities against prisoners of war. And what happened in the Bataan Death March is that the Japanese were marching the American and Filipino prisoners to prisoner of war camps. And what happened was, this is the Philippines. This is a very like tropical, climate. It got very hot. And the Japanese they didn't give the prisoners trucks to transport them on. They instead marched them. And the Japanese soldiers had canteens, so they had water that they were able to, they had water that they were able to drink, and they didn't share with the prisoners. They didn't give the prisoners breaks, they didn't give them water. And so the prisoners got, you can imagine what happened, over 90-degree weather. The prisoners started getting tired, they got dehydrated, they were collapsing from exhaustion. And so if a prisoner at any point stopped, what actually happened was that the Japanese would just kill them with a bayonet. They were very brutal. Oh, there's a health pack in there. And thousands of American and Filipino prisoners were murdered marching to these camps. And if you were, a prisoner of the Japanese, you had very little chances of surviving. Their prisoner of war camps, there were a lot of torture. There's very little chance that you would survive that. And what happened was, Americans didn't know about the Bataan Death March until actually 2 years later. Like, they knew that hundreds of thousands of American Filipino prisoners had gotten captured, but they didn't know the extent of just the atrocities committed against those prisoners. And 2 years later, when it was revealed, this is, still 1944, so the war was still going on. The American media reported on it, and the Japanese propaganda was trying to downplay it, and they were denying that they had killed any of the prisoners when they had. And the Japanese propaganda was claiming that the prisoners had died from hunger, because they were claiming the Americans hadn't fed them and forced them to fight to the last man, or they were claiming that the American and Filipino prisoners had died of disease. So that's what the Japanese were claiming. The Japanese would claim that a lot of times. Like, when people were murdered, the Japanese would claim that they died from disease. So it was just a way just to cover their tracks. But they had tried to cover up the whole thing. And if you want to know what happened, the people responsible for Bataan Death March, the Japanese commander was hung, and a lot of the other Japanese officials involved in the atrocities of Bataan Death March were shot. So they got the firing squad, and they were hung after the war. And about the Japanese, the Japanese, they had their own version of Nuremberg trials, the Tokyo War Tribunals, and basically what happened there is that the Japanese defense was very different than the German defense.
Japanese air attacks are chewing us up. Now, they've got a spotter and an observation post somewhere. Probably up high in one of those buildings. They'll have a radio relay station nearby. Find a boat and knock them out. We'll hold here. Got a lot riding on you, Marine. Let's put us down.
Damn, not good right now. Yeah, I think M1 Garand's the best gun in this game. So what I was saying about the Japanese and the way that they defended themselves at trial. So the Nazis, when they were put on trial, the Nazis, a lot of their arguments were the Nazis typically wouldn't deny the atrocities that they had committed. But what they would do is they would just claim at trial that they were following orders. So that was the thing that a lot of the Nazis, that was their excuse. They would claim that they were following orders. It's not an excuse. The Japanese, on the other hand, when they were asked why they committed these atrocities, they didn't deny the atrocities a lot of times. Sometimes they claimed that less people had died than was said, but a lot of times they would downplay the numbers. But what the Japanese would typically do, oh, and there's a tank there too. Oh, gotta watch out for that. I think you can destroy the tank with just grenades. Ah. Let's see here. Yeah, this is really unrealistic, though. You wouldn't be able to... The Japanese tanks were crap, but you wouldn't be able to take them out with grenades. Okay, so the Japanese defense. So how the Japanese typically defended themselves at trial after the war is they claimed that they didn't give specific... The Japanese commanders, they claimed they didn't give specific orders to kill prisoners, but they claimed that their soldiers did it anyway. So that was typically what the Japanese defense was. They wouldn't deny it, but they would typically say that their soldiers, the commanders would deny responsibility and say their soldiers did it. They didn't give specific orders. But here's the thing about that, is that that's not an excuse either, because even if that was the case, commanders are responsible for their soldiers. So if your soldiers do something on your command and you don't do anything about that, you are responsible for that. So while the Japanese commanders were claiming that they didn't give specific orders, but their soldiers didn't anyways, they did nothing to stop the atrocities that the Japanese soldiers were doing. Nothing. And they in fact encouraged it a lot of times. So, you know, why didn't they stop those atrocities? Why didn't they stop that from happening? But a lot of these commanders that had done these, you know, atrocities were hung after the war. Okay, here we got the Japanese, you know, heavy machine gun. I'm trying to remember what this is called. The Type something, I think this thing is called. Is that all of them? I think that is. I always try to look around for collectibles and other stuff that I can find. But the Philippines campaign, early on, you know, this is, you know, 1942. The Americans and the Filipino soldiers fought on bravely, but they just couldn't. They weren't prepared for the, you know, the onslaught of the Japanese army, and the Philippines had fallen, and the Philippines had been under Japanese occupation for 2 years. But there was a resistance movement in the Philippines, so there was people that resisted. There was both American, so there was American and Filipino soldiers that actually were not caught, and they fought on in the jungles in the Philippines for years. Now, as for MacArthur was here in the Philippines as the Philippines were falling, and MacArthur had left the Philippines. And a lot of people call MacArthur a coward for that, for leaving his soldiers there. But what a lot of people don't know is that MacArthur had no choice. He couldn't. He had to leave because the president had given him an order. The president is the commander-in-chief, so Roosevelt had ordered MacArthur to withdraw. So MacArthur had to leave. He really had no choice. But MacArthur did make a promise, and he promised to come back to the Philippines, and he came back about 2 years later. So the Philippines did remain under Japanese occupation for 2.5 years. So it's a baseball field. Okay. Oh, see if I can make this shot here. Got him. Radio command post disabled. Okay, perfect. And I think there is a collectible here. There we go. Oh, Commander Shima's photograph. So that's a bonus objective that you have. Commander Shima is the main antagonist in this game, and he's actually voiced by Mako, if I'm pronouncing his name correctly. He's actually the Japanese voice actor who voiced most famous for Uncle Iroh in the Avatar The Last Airbender. So this is a baseball field. You would see baseball in the Philippines. The Americans brought it over there. Damn, he's moving so much. Got him, okay. Oh, another one. Okay. Oh, damn. Okay, that was a good shot. So yeah, I think M1 Garand is probably the best weapon in this game. But, the thing about the M1 Garand is that, there's... Oh, whoa. Yeah, probably... Thompson's probably best for this. Yeah, so, you will encounter Japanese bonsai charges at times, and those, you know, scared me a lot when I was a kid. But what I was saying about the M1 Garand is that there's a few things that people might not know about the M1 Garand. So, here. Oh, here we go. So what a lot of people don't know about the M1 Garand is that the M1 Garand can only be loaded through clips. So it actually cannot be single loaded. So you can't just put a single, you know, round in, unless I guess you put it in the chamber. Or you put a clip in, which is a single round in it. But you cannot, like, you know, single load like an M1 Garand, like you could, for example, a Mosin Nagant or a R98. You have to load it in through the clip. And the thing about the Mosin, the M1 Garand is that the bolt on the M1 Garand. So when you actually loaded a clip in, the bolt would oftentimes slam forward. So it just immediately slam forward. I think there might be a collectible here. Oh wow, smaller box and smaller box, huh? Oh wow, look at that. How did that fit in there, huh? Golden Buddha. So yeah, the Japanese, similar to the Nazis, actually looted a lot of the territories that they had conquered. And they did steal a lot of stuff from a lot of countries. Okay, so with the M1 Garand, when you would load it, it would automatically slam the bolt forward. And so you hear that term Garand thumb, like a lot of people say that. The reason that there is that term Garand thumb is because when you're loading the clip in and you have your fingers in there and then the bolt just slams forward, your finger can get stuck in there, most notably your thumb. And for people wondering, it wouldn't cut off your thumb. It wouldn't do that. Like some people think it'll cut off your thumb. It's gonna hurt like hell. It might cause you to bleed, but it's not gonna, you know, cut off your finger. It's just gonna hurt like hell. You know, a big piece of metal just slams into your finger. But there actually is a way to avoid it. So there's actually a way to avoid it. There's two ways. You know, one way what you can do is you could hold the bolt. That's what a lot of soldiers did, is they would hold the bolt while loading the M1 Garand. But another way is there's a trick that people don't know about, and that is that when you're loading the M1 Garand, you hold the top bullet. So the top bullet, you just hold it down. You press it down. And when you do that, the bolt is actually not going to slam forward, so you don't got to worry about that happening. Protect Gunny and Donnie. Okay. Yeah, a machine gun would not... Like, a machine gun like this would not destroy a tank, but it's Medal of Honor logic for you. And this machine gun only has, I think, 20 or 30 rounds inside it. That's the magazine on the left. I don't remember what the name of the heavy Japanese machine gun is. I'm trying to remember what it's called. Okay, best try to find health. Oh, there it is. Okay, perfect. So the other film reel is behind here. I think I did get it at one point. Yeah, the other film reel would be back here.
Corporal, you find some way to signal the demo team. I'll check out this truck. Private, you keep your eyes peeled for jacks.
Demolition team signaled. Okay, got it. I remember this part now. This is the hardest part of the mission.
Get in the back of this truck and shoot anything that moves. It's gonna be a bumpy ride. Hold on!
Oh no, come on. Okay, tank's coming. Oh.
Damn it, Marine! You make sure you and that tank reach the bridge before we light it up.
So, your brother gets captured at this point. Oh no. Okay, this is what we gotta do. Wait till the tank's near the... Damn. Okay, got it. Ooh. Close. Still going? We gotta be... No. Okay. Great.
Griffin. At ease, lad. Listen, son, I'm sorry about your brother. We got a damn tough job done, and most of us made it out alive. He was a good Marine. You can't ask for more than that.
So some Americans had escaped, but a lot of people had gotten captured. And also another thing that I forgot to mention, one way that the Japanese were very effective at, like, you know, conquering, like, you know, specifically islands like that without vehicles. How were the Japanese able to get their soldiers across to a lot of places without vehicles and very fast and also cheaply. You know how? Bicycles. A lot of soldiers in the Japanese army would actually have bicycles, so you'd actually have entire like platoons where they would actually have bicycles. And even though that sounds ridiculous, is that it worked. Because the Japanese would just get on the bicycles and they would be able to get much farther than soldiers typically just marching. Be able to get much farther and much quicker, and so they were able to overwhelm the enemy really fast. That's what the Japanese actually did at Singapore. When they took Singapore from the British, they used bicycles. That's how they actually got so far ahead, and it actually surprised the British how far the Japanese army had caught up to them. But that was a very effective thing that the Japanese had done, bicycles.
With American armed forces now fully engaged in war, Japanese-occupied South Pacific islands are feeling the pressure. But hopes are crushed for a swift Allied victory in the Philippines. After a long, bloody battle, General MacArthur is ordered to retreat. Thousands of troops are left behind and forced to surrender. The enemy now controls the Philippines. MacArthur vows to return. In a bold offensive move, the United States prepares to land 10,000 troops on Guadalcanal, a relatively unknown island, where a strategic airfield is under construction by Japanese forces.
And let's take a look at the letters from home.
Dear Joe, I have no idea if you've been told yet, but I have terrible news. Yesterday we got a telegram, the kind everyone dreads. Mom refused to open it until Dad rushed home from work. It was about Donnie. He's missing in action in the Philippines. We've tried to get more information from the War Department, but all we know is Donnie and some of the other men in his unit are unaccounted for. Mom's taking this very hard. She's holding on to the hope that Donnie's just been separated from the other Marines, that he made it out of the battle but hasn't been able to report back yet. Maybe it's just some awful mistake. Dad says that can happen sometimes, right? For now, all we can do is pray for another telegram with better news. Somehow, I know it will come. I decided I had to do something to take my mind off things, to help the war effort. With all the men gone overseas, a lot of the girls are working in the factories now. I applied for a job down at the Atlas Steel plant, and I start on Monday. Where are you, Joe? Your last letter had so many holes cut out by the censors that it looked like a sieve. But please, write again. It means so much to us to hear from you, especially now. Love, Mary.
So, this is another important thing, is that during this time and after World War II, this is also, an important time for women's rights, because at this time, what actually happened was there was women that worked, before World War II, but it wasn't done like a massive scale. A lot of women actually did not work and typically did stay at home around this time. And what happened was when a lot of the men would go off to fight in the war, women actually joined up and enlisted as nurses, or they started working in factories. And so a lot of women actually were involved in factories, and they were actually making the guns that the soldiers would actually use in the war. And so a lot of women were employed in these factories. And what happened was after the war, like a lot of the men were expecting the women to go back to staying at home, but a lot of women didn't want to. They were now making a living, and they had, extra money, and they wanted to work a job just like the men did. So that was, a lot of people don't know that, is that during the war, women started working in factories, and then after the war, that's when, women started really entering the workforce in large numbers. Before that, they really didn't. But I guess that will we will wrap it up here, guys. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you guys like history when I talk about this. I do like I do know this time period pretty well, and I know history pretty well. I like it a lot. So thank you guys for watching. I hope that you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, drop a like, and we'll have the next part up for you guys as soon as I can. Thank you for watching. Take care, everyone. Have a wonderful day, guys.